Obviously, we'll start with the Cincinnati Bengals, as we always do. 34-12, they lose. And, if you would have told me that the defense was going to have a point in the game where they forced 3 consecutive punts, I would have said, you're lying to me right now. I would not have believed that for a single second. But there was a period there in the first half where they were getting off the field, right? A couple of negative plays. Myles Murphy, by no means am I in on Myles Murphy now, but obviously that was probably the best game of his career. He had some disruptive moments there in the wake of no Trey Hendrickson and, of course, no Shamar Stewart. No Shamar Stewart, and the defense plays significantly better. I think that's kind of a telltale sign a little bit there. Linebackers obviously continued to play really bad. I did like how they kind of took a few snaps away a little bit from Demetrius Knight. They put Oren Burks out there more throughout the rest of the year. If they want to play better on defense, they're going to have to play Oren Burks a little bit more. I understand that at this point you're kind of turning the page towards 2026. You're trying to see, okay, can Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight be guys for us going forward? Clearly that does not look good here at this point, but I think you start to see those linebackers play a little bit better with Burks, who is more of a special team guy. I would like to see him get some more reps there going forward. Barrett Carter, of course, disastrous performance. We'll talk about him. Geno Stone there as well. But, you start the game, and, Pittsburgh goes down and scores a touchdown, right? They had a huge run from Jaylen Warren where he's just slicing through guys, missed tackles, more of the same. And, we talked about this. You can fix stuff from a scheme perspective when you have a bye, right? You have an opportunity to improve, change some things, right, from a coaching standpoint. But when your issues are you're not quick enough, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough, and you can't tackle, that's not really something that is going to get fixed over the course of a bye week. And very quickly there, that first drive, 8 plays, 78 yards, about 5 minutes. Talk about, business-like and workman-like with Ohio State, but that's exactly what that drive was from Aaron Rodgers there to start the game. And then, you have an opportunity. Okay, let's see what this Bengals defense or Bengals offense does in response to that. And, the win definitely was a factor, right? People talk about excuses, and I understand that. But, the win clearly was a factor in this game. And Joe Flacco, we'll talk about him a little bit more specifically. People are banging on him for his performance. Was this his worst performance as a Cincinnati Bengal? Yes, I think that's very clear and very fair that we can go say that. But let's not act like this was a Jake Browning performance by Joe Flacco here. And clearly he is not 100%. Clearly, really, he's not close to 100%. I have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for how he's handled that, how he's gutted through that for guys that he hardly knows, right? He's only been here for a few weeks. He's playing through this AC joint, trying to be out there and be a competent guy, a good player before Joe Burrow comes back. And, he made some throws there, especially on third down early in the game. How about Yoshi? All right, he didn't do anything really after the first quarter, but he had those 3 catches there. They were big-time catches, some execution there on the later downs. Jamar had a play there on third down. You find a way to move the football down the football field, and that was certainly positive for the offense to go out there and do it. Now, of course, people are going to pick apart Zach Taylor and a lot of his decisions throughout the game. Of course, Bengals fans and people in the media do that each and every week. And his first real decision was, what do you do here after this penalty? Obviously, the Bengals had just tied the game, but then there was, roughing the long snapper and an opportunity to potentially steal a lead here and get 8-7. And for the record, that's the right decision from Zach Taylor. You just move down the ball down the football field offensively. You catch a break with a penalty. You're on the 1-yard line. Bengals haven't been dreadful in short yardage this year. And you go out there and you try to kind of steal a lead, right? Steal an additional point. And, obviously people are going to bang on the play call, right? When you call something like that, Reed brought this up on off the bench. I am for always having a play that you've repped a ton, that you have a ton of confidence in when you run the 2-point. Even if in that early of the game. Don't waste your best play, but you can waste a pretty good one. The fact that it's always got to be some gadgety stuff, and, if you're the Detroit Lions, right, or if you're the Chicago Bears, that kind of fits into your identity. But that's not Zach Taylor. That's not Dan Pitcher. That's not Joe Flacco. This isn't a gadgety offense. And then you get Chase Brown out there, and he catches the ball. And I thought it was going to be good. I was like, he's going to roll out, and he's going to hit Joe Flacco. He's going to catch it. It's going to be 2 points. And then he didn't even look Joe Flacco's way. And, again, I'm not some, X's and O's guy. I don't know exactly what the plan was there. I don't think Zach Taylor talked about it specifically, if that was even an option. But the guy that was lined up on the outside, the defensive back, he came crashing down. There was literally nobody on Joe Flacco. So if Chase Brown just would have caught it and thrown it out to Flacco, it would have been 2 points. Again, I don't know if that was a coaching point. I don't know if that was an option or if it was just run up the middle the whole way. So obviously it's a tough break there, but you sit there and you go, okay, if this is probably going to be a shootout, kind of what it felt like there after the first couple of drives, despite the fact that the wind obviously was a factor. And then this is something that Ted Karras alluded to after the game, was that you just haven't been able to play a complementary style of football at all through any of these games. We're sitting here on November 17th, and you literally haven't had one where it was like, the offense was solid, and the defense was solid there as well. Maybe you could argue week 1 against Cleveland, but the offense wasn't really solid in that game, right? And then the defense gets hot. They force 3 consecutive punts there. Aaron Rodgers was getting frustrated, and, I get the other side is like, well, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got DK Metcalf and a bunch of bums out there from a receiving core perspective, and they struggled mightily against the Los Angeles Chargers. I understand all those things, but for this Bengals defense, who, if you would have went out there and said, yeah, the Steelers are going to score every time they touch the ball, it might not always be a touchdown, but they're going to score every time, I would have said, okay, yeah, I kind of believe that. And then you string together these punts, and you're like, oh, my goodness, we're going to have an opportunity here to get back into this game and potentially take a lead. And then, unfortunately, the offense just wasn't able to match that. I thought early in the game, the offensive line started strong. As the game continued to go on, the offensive line got progressively worse. We've talked in recent weeks when the offense has kind of been humming that, this offensive line, they're putting things together. We even had a segment that we did on the show. I asked, Gabby Sorrentino and, Richard Skinner about this. Like, hey, could this offensive line be the same group next year? Like, you roll them out in week 1. Is this a real possibility? And I think it still could be, but obviously Orlando Brown Jr. continues to be awful, right? Amarius Mims, he was banged up in this game. He seemingly always is. He was, slow getting to some spots there. Jalen Rivers also got banged up. He didn't have a very good game. I thought Fairchild did a nice job for the Cincinnati Bengals, but the offensive line not quite able to hold up. If there's one thing or another thing you can, criticize Zach for in this game, I would like to see the ball get out a little bit quicker, right? Your quarterback's got this AC joint issue. You don't want to be hanging there in the pocket with these long developing routes, especially in the wind. Let's get it to T. Let's get it to Jamar early, and they really weren't able to do that. And, they found themselves in some long yardage situations, and they weren't able to convert. And as it was happening, it kind of felt like it was a missed opportunity for this team when you're like, man, the defense is finally getting off the field. Are they playing great? No, but they're getting off the field. They're forcing some punts. And the offense has been terrific in recent weeks. And that Steelers defense, yeah, there's some big names on there, but they had some guys that are banged up, right? There's no reason the Bengals couldn't have scored some points there in that game. And unfortunately, it just kind of became a punt battle where you're kind of just punting back and forth there. And then ultimately you give up a field goal, and then it's 10-6 going into the half. But really, from a defensive perspective, the 3 main takeaways are, 1, Barrett Carter is in over his skis. Right, there's a real possibility that this guy can't play in the National Football League. Clearly, that looks to be the case right now, but there's just a lot of things that are not good. And when you play linebacker, you can get away with not being great if you're an interior guy. And maybe even on the back end of your defense, if you get a favorable matchup, you can get away with it. If you're a bad linebacker and your running mate's also bad, you're going to get exposed. And that's what was happening there with Barrett Carter. He doesn't have the short area quickness, the lateral quickness, the speed, the strength, the angles. He's not seeing, like, literally everything, unfortunately for Barrett Carter, is going wrong out there. And then when you have that at the linebacker position, as I just mentioned, when your running mate is a rookie or a guy like Oren Burks, who you kind of view as more of a special team kind of guy, it's going to look really, really bad. And I thought, Barrett Carter's really struggled this year to this point, but that clearly was his worst performance. And that's got to be one of the worst linebacker performances that we've seen in the NFL in recent memory. Like, yeah, that's really bad. The missed tackles, the bad angles, getting bullied out there. And then that's takeaway number 1 is Barrett Carter he's got a long, long way to go. And I don't know if you can, have him be a guy for you next year. We'll see. There's still plenty of games to be played, but there's really no reason to be optimistic at this point for Barrett Carter. That's just the reality of the situation. Geno Stone's the other guy. We've been on this for a long time. It was very evident when the Bengals signed him last year early on that, this doesn't look right. Right? Things looked pretty good when you were playing him in Baltimore, when he was a member of the Ravens and he was picking off Joe Burrow and he was making big-time hits, or he was crashing down in the run game. Looked good, right? I'll be the first to admit. Bengals signed Geno Stone to a 2-year, $14 million deal. I was like, let's go. Right? He ain't Jesse Bates, but we'll be in a spot where we can, hold down a little bit on the back end. It just never got going. It was bad from the beginning, and they have continued to stick with it, which I don't understand that for the life of me. I don't know if there is some personal guarantee. I mean, there's nothing in his contract or something where it's like, Geno, we will play you. We promise we will. I don't understand. I do not understand. And look, Tyson Anderson, again, we all love him as a special teamer. the fact that he's not even getting a chance to go out there and play a little bit, like this stuff with Geno Stone, man, is really, really bad, right? Because if you're slow and you can't cover, you better be able to tackle. And that's the worst part about his game, because he can't tackle at all. And I don't know if it's just a lack of athleticism or if it's a lack of effort, but when he was going after Darnell Washington, I mean, that is some of the worst pursuit / tackling. I can't even call that tackling. I don't know what that is. Like, he's just running in the direction of Darnell Washington and just kind of bumping into him. Like, I mean, I don't get it. I do not get it at all. And he continues to go out there and play for this team and play a lot and play frequently. And even there at the end of the game, where it was after the pick six, the game was kind of over there already. But when he's getting face masked, and it was a face mask on the offense, and it was a good call. But like, even there, he's just getting worked. Just absolutely worked. And, I credit him for restructuring his contract. He said, for the most part, the right things in the media. But at this level in the NFL, you can't continue to roll him out there. I don't get it. We said after last season that he should be cut. Bengals said, we're not going to cut him, but we're going to pay him less money. He said, that's fine. I deserve less money based on my performance, and it has gotten even worse. So those two guys, right? It's the whole operation's fault. Everybody that touches the field, everybody that graces the surface for this Bengals defense are at fault here and should be blamed. And that goes with the coaches and the personnel, of course, there as well. But the two players, when you have two guys that are that bad, in Barrett Carter and Geno Stone, it looks really, really bad. It looks really, really bad. And the final takeaway there, the third takeaway, I guess, is just Darnell Washington just absolutely wrecking you. Now, I get it. He's like 300 pounds. He's a massive dude. He probably would do that to a lot of different teams. But when you're whiffing on him at the line of scrimmage and your backers are missing and you got DBs that are getting blasted, and like DJ Turner, who we believe in, like there was a couple times where he was just getting rocked by Darnell Washington. And obviously that is a really, really bad situation there. But you felt fortunate to go into the half and be down 10-6, and you're like, you know what? You're going to get an opportunity here to possess the football starting the third quarter, and there was reason to be optimistic there. And it was, frustrating that, finally the defense does something and the offense plays poorly. But then there's some optimism, right? I went into the half saying, you know what? Here we go for the Cincinnati Bengals. Real opportunity here to win this game, or at least cover the 5.5, right? And then you get the ball. And then the report comes out that, Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to be out there. And you're like, oh, my goodness, Mason Rudolph. It's not like they got Mac Jones, right? It's Mason Rudolph, who he ain't that good. Let's be completely honest here. And you're like, well, the defense is playing solid. You feel like the offense will pick it up. And you get the ball here, and you put together a solid drive, right? 7 plays, 51 yards, took a couple of minutes there, and you scored. You get 10-9. It's a 1-point game. And, you would have liked to see some more execution when they get in field goal range, but, you'll take it, right? It's a 1-point game. And then all of a sudden the defense kind of reverts back to old habits, right, in the second half. And honestly, there was only 2 drives for this Steelers team. 2 drives. That's it. If you go back and look at the game, there was 2 drives for this Steelers team on offense in the second half with Mason Rudolph, and you just gave up huge plays on 3rd and long. I believe it was definitely a 3rd and 17, and I think 2 3rd and 11s there as well. And when you're giving up all 3 of those to a Mason Rudolph, that's not good. That is not good at all. There was lapses in coverage. There was bad tackling. And on top of it, it wasn't like it was, boom, a huge explosive, and boom, they scored like that. They were just kind of wearing you down and chewing the clock and picking up first downs and moving the ball. And then you're able to get a stop. It was a 15-play drive. After you kicked the field goal, Steelers took a 15-play drive, took up over 7.5 minutes of the clock there in the third quarter. And then they kick a field goal. And it's like, you know what? That wasn't great defensively, but we hung in there. We bent and didn't break there in that spot. And then this is where kind of things completely changed on you. And we talked about this on Off the Bench with the Cincinnati Bengals. You are not in a spot. And this is, this just shows you're a bad football team when you're in a spot like this. But when you're in a spot like the Cincinnati Bengals and you don't play perfect or you make one mistake, obviously a pick six in the NFL is a huge mistake. If the Rams throw a pick six, they can overcome it, right? Shoot, even the Baltimore Ravens and all their struggles, they can overcome it, right? You look at others, the Buffalo Bills can overcome it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they can overcome it. The Bengals aren't in a spot right now where they can overcome a pick six. And they were moving the ball, plus territory, in Steelers' range, right? I think it was a 3rd and 9 when Flacco threw it. And, if you get like 4 or 5 yards there on that play, you probably send McPherson out again, and boom, it's a 1-point game, 4th quarter. right? If you're Zach Taylor, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and you said flying in to Pittsburgh a couple of days prior, and you sat there and said it will be a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter or at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, every single person would say, sign me up. And then you have a huge mistake, and you throw an interception. And at first, I'm thinking, what in the heck is Joe Flacco doing here on this play? Like, that was like a Jake Browning type decision. You go back, obviously he was hit, and that impacted it a little bit. So, excuse me, bad decision from Joe Flacco to kind of still let go of the ball there. Bad job by the offensive line there in that spot there as well. And ultimately, Kyle Duggar picks it off. And remember, we were lamenting a couple of weeks ago before the trade deadline, oh, Pittsburgh, they went out and then they tried to get better. And the Bengals weren't in a spot where they were dead, right? We were all sitting there like, yeah, things don't look good, but maybe you go get a safety, you could have an opportunity here, right? Kyle Duggar, you could have traded for Kyle Duggar, right? Now, based on how the season was going and you already made the trade for Flacco, like, would that have been a great decision, giving up more capital? Probably not. But Duggar was out there to trade. Pittsburgh, they want to win, right? They're this winning organization. I get they haven't won a playoff game in Lord knows how long, right? But they make decisions to try to win. They went out there and got Kyle Duggar. Who picks it off? Safety Kyle Duggar, who, by the way, has transformed their defense. They've played a ton better since he's been in there. And he picks it off and he takes it the other way. And we'll talk about Jamar spitting in a second. But I would encourage everybody to go back and watch the interception, right? Again, we just said the Bengals aren't good enough to overcome a pick six. There is no reason that Kyle Duggar should have scored on that play. No reason. You have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on the football field. Now, it's not just if you watch it once maybe and you're not really paying attention, you might think, Stone, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? They were there. They were chasing after him. They were running, right? Jamar was all the way down there on the 5. Like, what are you talking about? They were there. They were giving effort. That wasn't full effort. That was not max effort, right? Don't lie to yourself and say it was, because it was not. You go back there and watch it. T. Higgins, he starts running there at first, and then once Duggar hits about that 30-yard line, he slows it down a little bit and kind of just coasts, and Duggar goes into the end zone. Jamar, he was there. He was running. He was there at the 5. Just kind of olays him in, right? Yeah, we'll get there at the 5, and you make a little juke, and I'll just olay you. Welcome to the end zone, right? Those are your two of your best players. Those are the guys that you are paying big money deals. They should be full sprint. I get Jamar was running hard down there after him. We've all seen Jamar kick it into gear and go full sprint. That was not full sprint. Don't lie to yourself. It was not. Now, the counter argument is, they make a play at the 5-yard line, Pittsburgh still probably punches in. That's fine, but that doesn't feel exactly the same as a pick six, right? A pick six, when you're in the spot that Cincinnati is as a team, is impossible to overcome, especially in the waning seconds of the third quarter, early fourth quarter, right? I get Jamar ran down there. That was not full speed. That was not full speed. He can make that play at the 5-yard line. He is the best athlete on the field. He could have gotten Duggar down. He could have gotten him out of bounds. Don't kid yourself. Don't do it. Olayed him into the end zone. I'm more frustrated about that than the spitting, to be completely honest with you. The spitting's gross. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's not something you should do, especially if you are a captain of the football team and you have a media press conference every week because the team and the organization view you as a captain. I get that. I'm more ticked off about the effort there on the pick six. Shouldn't have gotten in the end zone. You watch T. Higgins. He takes off there at first. He hit about that 30-yard line. He starts coasting. I got a problem with that. That's not good. And again, it wasn't, Yoshi and somebody or Mitchell Tinsley or Burton or somebody. It's your two guys. It's your two dogs. It's two of your guys that are getting a huge portion of your salary cap. That wasn't max effort. Yeah, they were running. Yeah, Jamar got down there. Was not max effort. Obviously, that changed the game at that point. When that happens, it's 20-9. And unfortunately, you're not good enough there in that spot. You're thinking, well, the defense, they played well in the first half, but there's no confidence that they could get this thing turned around and get a stop late in the game, right? Again, defense played well in the first half. But when they need to be special, when this team says, at this point, we need you to be clutch, we need you to get a stop, we need you to get a turnover, they're never solid in those spots, and that showed again. So it's 20-9. Bengals responded. They moved the ball a little bit. There was a nice throw there on the boundary to T, and it was like, okay, maybe there's a little life here. They kick a field goal. Oh, it's a one-possession game once again. And then the next drive was just kind of a microcosm of the Bengals season to this point. 12 plays, 65 yards. They chew up 6 minutes of clock. Bad tackling, not in the right spot. Bad from Geno. Bad from Barrett Carter, more time for Rudolph to operate the offense. They go down there and score. And if it didn't feel like it was over after the pick six, obviously after they chewed 6 minutes of clock off in the fourth quarter and it was 27-12, it was very much over at that point. So really only 2 opportunities there defensively. And again, the first drive, you held them to 3. It was like, okay, we'll take it. So, but that last drive where the Bengals, I think it was Gainwell again that scored. It's just that was the Bengals defense that we have come accustomed to seeing here. And then you had the fumble return for a touchdown. That just, kind of what Zach was saying after the game, like, well, it didn't feel like 34-12. I hear you. I don't know if I would have said that if I was Zach Taylor, but I hear you, right? The game was already over at that point, and then Fant fumbles back the other way. And next thing you know, you look up and it's like, wow, it is 34-12. Whereas like a second ago, you're like, wow, it's 13-9, and we're about to at least make this thing 13-12. And then it just flips upside down on you, and you lose the game 34-12. So, and the margins are thin, man, in the National Football League, and especially when you're a team like the Cincinnati Bengals that have as many holes as they do. If you're going to make a huge mistake like that and give up a pick six, that's going to lose you the game. They're not good enough to overcome that kind of stuff, right? And then obviously, the other turnover later. But the game was already lost there at that point. But, you had opportunities in the first half where your defense was playing well. You could have gotten a lead. You had an opportunity to have a lead and then also possess the ball to begin the second half. And, by the way, Aaron Rodgers was not even playing. And, credit to the Bengals defense. They were pressuring him. I thought it was kind of weird to me because Aaron Rodgers usually just kind of gets rid of the ball, but he was kind of holding on to the ball, and there was opportunities to hit him, right? Murphy had a sack. Osai was in. There was some quarterback pressures there. They hit him, and, obviously ultimately knocked him out of the game. So, the defense did some things there in the first half, but then you weren't able to couple it with any quality performance there, and obviously you lose again. There's really not much to say. Zach after the game's like, yeah, we got to find a way to win. Man, he's right. They got to find a way to win. But there's, the playoffs done, right? I guess you could win out and probably get in. But don't kid yourself. This team's not winning out, even with Joe Burrow.